This term slop content has been getting used a lot lately, and from what I gather, it implies that whatever content being described as such is A, either relatively easy to produce and can be consistently uploaded, or B, in some form has been sloppily made, whether that be in its writing, research, or in some other aspect that affects the content's overall merit and causes one to call into question the creator's integrity. Sometimes channels can fall into both categories, but anyways, someone I've seen come up in this discourse about slop content to some extent is Turkey Tom, someone who makes high effort videos on the main channel and daily commentary videos about controversies and drama on his Tom Dark channel as well as his Tom Dark Live channel. Whether you love or hate his content and think that it's slop, I don't really think matters in this discussion. If he's not spreading misinformation nor making harmful content in the sense that he's doxing anyone, showing anything illegal or anything crazy like that, and if he's covering whatever given story with the care that's necessary, then there's no problem. Specifically on his secondary channels, I'd say the content would fall under category A of slop, easily produced content, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. However, the problem arises when content shows symptoms from category B of slop, content that essentially lacks integrity. One great example of this type of slop content is Mama Max. On the surface, you may think his videos are well made and they seem to have a lot of time and effort put into them. On top of this, he's apparently doing a great thing by making content about catching slop for some of the worst people in society. However, earlier this year, it came out that he's a complete fraud, and in a nutshell, his videos are pretty much just well-polished slop, as his investigations into these slop were sloppily executed, and because of this, his credibility completely went down the drain, and rightfully so. When it comes down to it, I believe this is the main issue with slop content, videos that lack integrity, and in this video, I'll be going over more examples and highlighting what I believe are some of the biggest issues with slop content. On October 15th, 2023, YouTuber One Giant Onion made a video titled Watching Sniper Wolf Until I Laugh. The video is pretty much what the title implies, just him sitting down for 3 hours straight watching Sniper Wolf videos until he eventually laughs at the end. Sniper Wolf is a creator who primarily makes reaction videos, and one thing you need to know about her is that throughout the wider YouTube community, she's not respected, and for good reason. She has a history of getting herself into controversy, like for example, back in the day she abused the copyright system to falsely strike a smaller creator going by the name Enigma Hood, who made videos criticizing her, and just last year she got into some hot water for essentially doxing fellow creator Jax Films, someone who was very critical of her React's content at the time. She of course has more skeletons in her closet, but the reason I bring this up is because there are indeed reasons to criticize and call her out, and this now brings me to the commentary community who did just that. I think the commentary community is very important to the YouTube ecosystem. Commentary channels build their platforms by critiquing and calling out other creators and public figures, as well as bringing situations to light, and collectively they spread whatever they're covering to a wider audience. This is why I think slop content that falls under category A, easily produced content, is important because, for example, if it wasn't for someone like Critical covering the topics he does to a massive audience, there wouldn't be as much awareness being spread about a situation, and creators wouldn't be held accountable for the scummy things they do. However, I do believe when it comes to creators who make easy to produce commentary videos, because to an extent they try to get a story out as quickly as possible, at times mistakes can be made in their coverage, and this brings me back to One Giant Onion. On June 28th, 2024, he posted a video titled My YouTube Channel Might Get Banned, where he brought to light the fact that he received a strike on his channel because of his video reacting to Sniper Wolf for 3 hours, and he claims that she was the one responsible for the strike. From there, various commentary channels such as Critical, Sensitive Society, Dumpy, Asmongold, The Cheeto, among others, covered the situation and talked about this claim One Giant Onion made. However, if you take a look at the video, specifically at the part where he shows the copyright claim, he doesn't show the claimant's name. So from the video itself, we can't completely confirm if his channel was striked by Sniper Wolf herself, or if someone filed the claim on her behalf, or if it's someone impersonating her. Later on though, through a series of tweets she made, it was confirmed that she did not request a takedown on his video. She even posted a screenshot of her removal request, and his video is nowhere to be seen. Furthermore, she brought up how nobody, not Critical or even One Giant Onion, tried reaching out to verify if she did in fact strike his video, and this now brings me back to the commentary channels who covered this story. Practically everyone who covered the situation before Sniper Wolf made her tweets addressing everything and spread the narrative that she striked his video did in fact spread misinformation, which isn't good. With this story in particular, the fact that One Giant Onion didn't show the claimant should have been discussed when covering the story, and even though Sniper Wolf does have a history of abusing the copyright system to silence her critics, at the time we didn't have definitive proof as to whether or not she was the one who filed the strike on his channel, and this is something that should have also been brought up. I should mention though that it's a good thing that some of the channels I mentioned earlier made statements setting the record straight and correcting the misinfo they spread and or retracted their initial videos, but some didn't, such as Asmongold and A Cheeto, at least not at first, and I now want to talk more about A Cheeto's coverage. A Cheeto also covered the story of One Giant Onion and the strike on his channel, having also ended up contributing to the spread of misinformation, and on November 6, 2024, a channel going by the name Lyrics uploaded a video video titled The Drama Slop Epidemic, False Allegation, Misinformation, and Slander, and in said video he had some valid critiques of Achido's coverage that I'm now gonna go over. First off, Lyrics pointed out the fact that Achido admitted he didn't have any intentions on being charitable to Sniper Wolf in his coverage, which I don't think is inherently a bad thing to have a bias against her. It is understandable you wouldn't want to be charitable to her because she has done a lot of criticizable things. However, if it means you're going to purposely leave out information and not accurately present the facts of a story as well as the nuance, that's where it becomes a problem. Lyrics pointed out Achido's bias and how it influenced his coverage, and how although Achido did include Sniper Wolf's initial tweet responding to the situation, for whatever reason he decided not to include any of the other tweets she made clearing things up, including the screenshot of her removal request, which again is proof that she didn't strike One Giant Onion's channel and is crucial to bring up when covering the situation. Second, there's a segment in Lyrics' video where both him and Achido have a conversation. Lyrics was questioning him about why the video slandering Sniper Wolf and spreading misinfo was still up, and at the time Achido was pretty adamant on keeping the video up, suggesting it'll affect his ad revenue and his channel. Lyrics at some point then makes the argument that this is a hit to his integrity and that he's an untrustworthy source who doesn't fairly report the facts of a story, and realistically, daily commentary channels are a source that people go to for recent drama, controversy, and things that are happening throughout the wider community, so getting the story straight is really important, as you don't want to cause any confusion and you don't want to spread misinfo, especially if you're covering really serious allegations, which is also a reason to want to have good credibility and integrity with your content. This is of course a summarized version of some of Lyrics' points, and I believe Achido's sloppy coverage highlights a lack of care about how a story is presented, allowing for personal bias to get in the way of accurately covering a story and its nuance. And because of Achido's lack of effort to course correct, it came across like he didn't care about whether or not he spread misinformation. In the end, Achido did take the video down, but if Lyrics never called him out, his video would probably still be up to date, potentially spreading misinformation, just like how Asmongold's video is still up, and to my knowledge he hasn't made an effort to set the record straight. So I do also believe he deserves some criticism for actively spreading misinfo through his video. But anyways, I now want to move on to the next example of misinformation being spread. On May 2nd, 2024, SunnyV2, who's a creator who makes weekly videos about celebrities, YouTubers, TikTokers, and more, uploaded a video titled Beloved YouTubers Who Died as Legends. In said video, he talks about various YouTubers who unfortunately passed away too soon, including one creator who I now want to talk about going by the name Laoshu55,000. Laoshu gained popularity through his channel where he would converse with strangers in various different languages, including but not limited to Mandarin, Cantonese, and Korean. Laoshu, whose real name is Moses McCormick, sadly passed away due to heart complications, or at least that's what pretty much every source says. And of course this is true, however they don't get any more specific than that, and I want you to keep this fact in mind because later on I'm going to talk more about the heart condition in particular that sadly caused his passing. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about Moses' brother, Mark McCormick, who runs a channel going by the name Deception Stoppers, and through some of his most popular videos he claims to be doing just that, stopping the deception and misinformation he believed was being spread about his brother's death. The notion is that Moses McCormick passed away due to heart complications. However, his brother Mark McCormick claims he didn't and says that he was actually murdered, and he even claims to have photos. I learned about the claim that Mark has photos through another channel going by the name Fuji Man, and the man who runs this channel was a close friend of Moses who knew him for over 20 years. And in this video titled Addressing the Lies of the Shock Value Photos and Mom's Message to Mark, screenshot messages between both Fuji Man and Mark were shared, and once again we can see that Mark claims to have photos of Moses, and in said photos Mark said there was so much blood and that he had blood coming out of his eyes, nose, and mouth. A video of Mark showing the photos in question was also posted to his channel Deception Stoppers. However, I believe there's reasons to be skeptical that these are photos of him in the hospital after having been murdered. Although there are marks on his face and there does seem to be blood, a myriad of different things could have been the cause of said marks, and Mark doesn't provide anything more than photos, like where's the autopsy report or anything else that can back up his claims that he was murdered. And why are there watermarks slapped on the photos of his channel name? On top of this, if Mark claims his brother was murdered, then who did it? Or are there any police reports, or is there a suspect? These questions now bring me to Moses' fiance, Language Bay 55,000, whose real name is Renee, and Mark through his videos makes the claim that she's an ex-federal agent. And on top of this, there's a video on his channel titled Shocking Update, Renee Goes to Prison for Life, where Mark says, quote, she was sent as a girlfriend until the hit can be carried out. But again, if she was in any way, shape, or form linked to Moses' death, and if she's apparently in prison, then where are the police reports or any substantial evidence that can back up his claims? Furthermore, there's videos of Mark saying that he's pursuing an independent investigation, and even linked a GoFundMe saying that he would use the funds for, quote, independent forensic reports, expert medical reports, expert medical testimony, private investigator fees, subpoenas, and other fees associated with the investigation. But where's any of the forensic reports, and what information did you gather from the private investigators you hired and the receipts to back up said info? Overall, Mark doesn't bring up anything substantial to the table that completely backs up the claims he's been making. However, if you remember, I mentioned a channel going by the name Fuji Man, and if we take a look at Fuji Man's side of everything and the claims he makes in regards regards to Moses' passing, he actually brings up substantial evidence that debunks the misinformation Mark has spread. First off, on February 13th, 2022, in this video posted by Fujiman, he starts the video off by introducing himself as a close friend to Moses, and by saying that him, other close friends, and family members tried reaching out to Mark to sort through all of the info he supposedly had to get down to the bottom of what exactly happened to Moses. However, Mark would threaten to sue and block comments by family and friends on his Deception Stoppers channel, and from there, Fujiman said it became apparent that Mark wanted to be the only one in control of the narrative regarding his brother's passing, which as a result would drive traffic to the GoFundMe he created. The reason why Fujiman created his channel was to figure out what really happened based on any substantial facts and evidence available, to give a platform to the friends and family of Moses, and to clear up all the misinformation Mark spread through his videos. And in the same video by Fujiman, he addresses the photos Mark put up on his channel, and I now want to play you the clip of Fujiman talking about said photos.
So let's recap. Moses passed away due to cardiac arrest on March 4th. Photos are taken that day. On March 8th, Mark tells me on Facebook Messenger he's going to send me these bloody photographs. On March 10th, he tells another close friend of ours the same thing. On March 15th, he creates the first video on Deception Stoppers claiming that Moses was murdered, but also creates the heart attack narrative. On May 8th, Marcel and I go live on his YouTube channel and present all the videos, certificates, and facts surrounding the story that prove Moses died of cardiac arrest resulting from cardiovascular disease. 1 month later, in June, Mark posts a video showing the pictures at the time of death, creating shock value. Why? Because the public had the factual information and documents that pointed to natural death. The photos at first glance looked odd and very strange, as they appeared to have Moses being beat up, scratched up, and bloody, which opened up Pandora's box to a whole new world of questions because of the heart attack narrative that Mark created on March 15th. He had the whole world believing that this side was saying, oh, it was a heart attack. But then when you look at the pictures at the time of death, they do not align with a heart attack. But if you think about cardiac arrest, they do. So that's where the confusion was, is that we had proved that it was cardiac arrest on May 8th. He was talking about heart attack since March 15th. So what did those pictures really depict? What do they actually show? Do they align with the death certificate? Do they contradict the autopsy report? That's what we're going to get into. So it was obvious that Mark and a lot of his following over at Deception Stoppers were still under the spell of cognitive dissonance, seeing how on May 8th, we had proved that Moses passed away due to cardiovascular disease resulting in cardiac arrest with official documents. However, they still chose to chant heart attack a month later on June 15th, because it made the time of death photos more believable and convincing that they could continue to push the murder narrative throughout social media. So what happens when you have cardiac arrest versus heart attack versus blunt force trauma? Well, blunt force trauma, the injuries would have been obvious. You can't hide them. They're not going to heal at the time of death. Heart attack is when your blood circulation path is blocked to the heart. That also didn't happen, which leaves us with cardiac arrest. So in cardiac arrest, your heart just suddenly stops, gets out of rhythm, fails, and so does your breathing. So he's in the fight for his life. So when he's in the ED room, we don't know how his body was responding. Could have been jerking, but what I do know is his breathing was rapidly declining, and they were doing everything they could to save his life. Putting breathing tubes down his throat, forcing needles into his body, some of them even touching the bone, doing chest compressions, shocking him. So I would expect to see some blood. I would expect to see some swelling, possibly due to inactivity of fluids building up in his body, but they did not show cuts. They did not show bruises. They did not show any open injuries, which is the scratches that you were talking about. How did they heal? Because when he was sent home for his service, your mom looked at his entire body. There is no amount of makeup that they would have been able to put on him that would hide any of these open wounds, especially blunt force trauma. And once you die, your body starts decaying. Your wounds do not heal. So why did you wait so long to put these pictures out? Well, it was because you wanted the story to never end. It goes along with this vortex of deceit that you created that has no end game. What's even more telling is that I see homicide cases every day that hardly have any evidence. You had a murder suspect, you had a warning video, you had photographs, and this story is nowhere on any major news network to this day. We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary, and we are nowhere closer than we were back in March.
As Fujiman said in this clip, on May 8th, 2021, him and a friend going by the name Marcel went live on his channel and pretty much hosted a Q&A in regards to Lao Shu and his passing. In said live stream, official documents were shown that pretty much refute the false narratives that Mark was spreading about his brother's passing, with one of said documents being a death certificate. Taking a closer look at the certificate, it states the manner of death being natural, and that the immediate cause of death was arteriosclerotic and hypertensive cardiovascular disease. On August 23rd, 2021, Fujiman showcased the autopsy report that also affirms the cause of death to be arteriosclerotic and hypertensive cardiovascular disease. It's safe to say that Mark through his videos didn't stop deception, but rather perpetuated it and managed to gain a following of people who also believed the lies he was telling. This is one great example of misinformation being spread, and because people believed said misinfo, it allowed for this false narrative to thrive, muddying the water of a story that deserves to have proper closure and to be told correctly. Moses had a big impact on the language learning community due to his approach to studying foreign languages, and he also has been referred to as the imperfectionist polyglot in this one article written by Misha Wilmers, focusing less on perfection but rather on simply making connections and having fun conversing in whatever language he's trying to learn. I'm sure you could tell just by how long I've been talking about Lao Shu and his passing that this story has a lot of nuance to it, and this is the reason why I went into as much detail as I did, to highlight the nuance that should be considered when covering the story. And I also wanted for you to understand the fact that Mark lied about Moses' death, saying he was murdered when in reality he passed due to natural causes, as proven through official documents showcased by Fujiman. With all of this being said, not sure if you remember, but at the way beginning of this section of the video, I introduced Sunny V2 in his video tributing YouTubers who sadly passed away and how he covered Moses' passing, and I now want to show you a clip from Sunny V2's video and go on from there.
However, in May 2020, Lao Shu's brother Mark, who often appeared in the videos, uploaded his own video titled "Warning Video to Lao Shu Family, Friends and Fans, Moses is Not Safe." In the video, Mark explained that Lao Shu had begun a new relationship with a girl who he believed was acting very strangely.
I don't know this girl, and she came out of nowhere. And she's an ex-federal agent.
The video was especially concerning after this was also said,
"We have to pray for Moses right now. He is not well. She actually has been manipulating him, and he is not well. He's not well."
And while this could have been dismissed as an overprotective brother, Lao Shu died unexpectedly only 9 months later. The cause of death was supposedly a heart attack, yet Lao Shu's brother didn't buy it for a second.
And it would be a damn lie to tell the world that he died of a heart attack.
He'd upload a new video believing Lao Shu was murdered by his girlfriend.
In 2020, I shared my concern regarding being associated with that new girl that nobody knew.
Also starting an online fundraiser which read, "My brother didn't have any chronic illness and never complained to me about heart issues. When I seen the condition of his body, I immediately knew he was killed," yet Lao Shu's girlfriend responded to the claims by calling them baseless conspiracy theories. So exactly what happened is for your own conclusion, but the assassination...
As we saw from this clip, Sunny V2 brought up Mark and the misinformation he spread. However, he didn't acknowledge it as such, nor were there any efforts made to debunk it. And Lao Shu's fiance, also known as Language Bay 55,000, was also brought up, albeit not by name, and the only post Sunny shows in his video from her is this Instagram post she made, specifically this section of said post. But there's so much more to go into besides said section, like for example, Renee mentions how she shared a video of Lao Shu's best friend speaking, most likely referring to this video on her channel featuring Fujiman, since the dates between said video and her IG post align perfectly. And I also want to note that I find it surprising how Sunny V2 didn't even mention Fujiman at all, or even Language Bay's channel, because it was on her channel that I found out about Fujiman and the existence of his channel, which led me to finding out about all of the evidence he had undoing Mark's spread of a false narrative. Furthermore, in Renee's post, she mentions how Mark was trying to sue Moses, saying, quote, "I would like to make it clear that the same person who is asking you all for money right now to help Lao Shu also filed a frivolous ongoing lawsuit against Lao Shu for over $300,000. So we can see here she's not only referring to Mark's GoFundMe, but this claim she's making about a lawsuit against Lao Shu also does seem to check out, as on August 8th, 2021, on Marcel's YouTube channel, both him and Fujiman show court documents, and I'm gonna play you a clip from that video right now.
When he did have that lawsuit and it was active, his lawyers some lawyers had suggested him, you do realize that your brother is deceased, or you want to continue? And he said, yes, justice will prevail. He was still trying to sue his brother in death. So that just tells you what kind of person that he's dealing with. And his
That
sister
is
will
crazy.
confirm that. If you don't believe me, you can reach out to her because she's more than willing to speak on it.
I know it's a possibility that perhaps Sonny missed important details in his coverage because during the researching phase, said details were glossed over. Because if Sonny or whoever does research for him had really went through Renee's post in its entirety, they wouldn't have missed how she refers to Lao Shu's best friend, a detail that should have prompted the question, who is this best friend she's talking about and where can I find this video of him speaking? Another possibility is that maybe because Fuji Man's, Marcel's, and Renee's videos in the grand scheme of things have gotten less attention than Mark's, maybe the information was a bit obscure and not as immediately visible or accessible. However, if there's one thing that Renee's IG post reveals, the one that Sonny showed in his video, is that without a doubt there's two sides to the story, with one side having spread deception and the other trying to stop said deception. My biggest issue with Sonny V2's coverage of Moses is how open-ended he left the story, saying, quote, "So exactly what happened is for your own conclusion, but it shouldn't be though if we have all of the necessary evidence to tell Moses' story properly." And I'm not saying he had to go into absolutely every single detail, but I believe that when tributing a beloved creator such as Lao Shu, telling the story right is important. Mark essentially toyed around with Moses' story and his passing, causing confusion, spreading misinformation, and having successfully built a small following of people who actually believed him, and all of this should have been acknowledged and called out. Sonny V2 has a big platform and had the chance to make sure the story was told right, but I guess leaving things open-ended and leaving how Moses passed to be for our own conclusion, despite the fact that all of the info necessary to tell the story correctly is out there, it was probably easier just to leave out certain details rather than doing a bit more research and combing through all of the finer details to properly piece the story together. Let's place ourselves in an imaginary scenario for a moment. You spent days, weeks, months, or even years on a project you were really passionate about, and after having finished that project, you finally put it out there and people actually end up seeing and enjoying your work. It's an amazing feeling to know that someone out there resonates with your work. However, someone from your audience decides to yoink parts and ideas of your project and pass them off as their own without credit. This is called plagiarism, and this is also a sloppy way to go about making anything, because instead of using your own creativity to fuel the project, you're essentially just stealing somebody's swag. This now brings me to a video I remember watching a couple years back called "Reddit is Worse Than You Thought," published February 21st, 2021. I remember watching it and thinking the video was entertaining, and I had a feeling the creator who uploaded it was really gonna go places. Today they have over 1 million subscribers and their name is Moon, someone who makes quote videos on what's really happening in the world. Recently, however, I found out that Moon is a plagiarist, as on April 1st, 2020, another channel named Overlord Gaming dropped a video titled "Downfall of Reddit," and the two videos have striking similarities, to put it lightly. If you take a glance at the upload dates of each creator's videos, Overlord Gaming released his video first, so naturally, if there's any plagiarism going on, it had to have been done by Moon. And on August 8th, 2021, Overlord Gaming made a video calling out Moon for his plagiarism, and I now want to play you some footage from his video to highlight just how much Moon plagiarized him.
I'll begin by showing you my video first, since mine was uploaded 326 days before the other guy's video. And I'll also show you an excerpt from the original script for Downfall of Reddit I wrote back in 2020. Here. Just have a listen. They occasionally take the trouble to falsely accuse the ban community of breaking some rules in a pointless and pathetic attempt to justify the ban.
The admins of Reddit will falsely ban subreddits under the guise of breaking some arbitrary rules in a pointless and pathetic attempt to justify the ban.
They weren't always this trigger happy.
They weren't always this trigger happy.
There was, once upon a time, when they would only close a community if it brought unwanted media scrutiny and bad PR to the whole website.
There was actually a time when they would only close a community if it brought unwanted media scrutiny and bad PR to the whole website.
The earliest example of this might be the Jailbait subreddit,
The earliest example of this was the Jailbait subreddit,
which featured photographs that many argued were distasteful at best and borderline illegal at worst.
which featured photographs of what many argued was distasteful at best and borderline illegal at worst.
Reddit allowed this community to thrive until it was noticed by CNN's Anderson Cooper, which brought a lot of negative attention to the website.
But Reddit allowed this community to thrive only until it was noticed by CNN's Anderson Cooper, which then brought a ton of negative attention to the website.
In this case, though, Reddit was pretty transparent about the reason of this ban.
In this case, Reddit was pretty transparent about the ban.
Spez's first order of business was to create the quarantine, which restricted features in certain communities and forced users to manually opt in to viewing them.
I only showed you about a minute and a half of Overlord Gaming's video, but rest assured he continues to bring up a myriad of instances in which Moon plagiarized his video, and truth be told, this man is a certified biter because even Moon himself acknowledged his laziness and lack of creativity, as on the same day Overlord Gaming released his video calling out Moon, he also made a tweet posting a screenshot of Moon apologizing for his video and his plagiarism, and some of the excuses he made in said apology were essentially the following. He had no idea the video would get as many views as it did. He also brought up the fact that at the time of upload, Moon was just a small channel with only about 1,000 subs, and he says, quote, "I copied a lot of the script from Overlord Gaming and this was a terrible mistake." Now, I know I'm probably going to be nitpicking here, but I really just want to express how terrible of a response this is. First off, regardless of whether or not you expect to get 10 views or 100,000 views in a video, plagiarism should never be done or tolerated. Most of the time, college students writing essays don't get any form of online attention or monetary compensation, and if they even dare to plagiarize, it's going to warrant some serious consequences. Moon eventually took down the video, so I'm not sure how many views it got in total, but from the screenshot from the Wayback Machine, at some point it racked up over 200,000 views, not only surpassing the original work, but to add insult to injury, he knowingly profited off of someone else's work. Lastly, I hate how he refers to it as a quote-unquote mistake. Moon did not make a mistake. He purposefully copied another creator's work because of his lack of originality. Plagiarism at times can be hard to detect, so whenever it's noticed, it should be called out, and if Moon was willing to plagiarize once, there's a chance he could have done it in another one of his videos, since he's one of those Sunny V2 type of channels who just constantly pump out videos. On October 30th, 2024, a creator going by the name Terror uploaded a video titled The YouTube Slop Economy, and in said video he talks quite a bit about Pyrocynical, someone who uploads high-effort video essays on his main channel and refers to his non-main channel videos as slop, probably due to how frequently he pumps them out, and because they're most likely not super hard to make. At the end of the day, I think his slop videos are pretty harmless. However, I do have some thoughts on them that I will share later on, but for now, I want to go over Terror's thoughts on Pyro Slop content. On November 27th, 2024, Terror made a tweet with this image attached, with the caption being "the slop economy at work." One thing this tweet is essentially saying is, hey, look at Pyro making a slop reaction out of my video. And if I'm being completely honest, I think there's an interesting conversation to be had about how at times reaction content does surpass the original work in views, with the reactor of course profiting. And taking a look at the view counts, this has indeed occurred. In a conversation about react content, I believe it's important we consider how transformative said content is, and I think in this case, Pyrocynical adds valuable commentary, and here's why. I think we need to consider Terror's video in the subject matter. His video is not only a critique of slop content in general, but he spends a good chunk of the video talking about and critiquing Pyrocynical's slop channel Pyro Live, and with this in mind, Pyro is well within his right to make a response to said criticism in however way he sees fit, including in the form of a reaction. Of course, given that he actually says something of substance, which I do believe he does in this video reacting to Terror's video, I'm not a huge fan of Terror's tweet if I'm being honest, because it subtly implies there's a problem with Pyrocynical reacting to his video, when in reality there isn't. It's not like Pyro pulled a Hassan and just left the room and let his chair react, but Pyro actually engages with the content, critiquing him in a meaningful way, and on top of this, he even goes as far as to cut out whatever fluff there may have been, because in Pyro's video, he doesn't show himself reacting to Terror's video in its entirety. At the end of the day, Pyro's reaction videos are harmless, and I think it's a useless sport going after him for his react content, even if it's not the highest quality content. However, that's not to say he doesn't deserve criticism in other aspects of his slop videos, which I'll discuss in a bit. With this whole discussion of slop content, like I said earlier in the video, out of the two types of slop videos, I think category B is the real culprit here. And when it comes to react slop content, I think we should be focused on calling out these react streamers like XQC, who literally adds no commentary, or Hassan Piker, who just lets his chair react and give its thoughts. Now, just because I don't like Terror's tweet doesn't mean I entirely disagree with or dislike his video about slop content, because I do think he brings up some interesting points that I now want to talk about. Terror brings up how a lot of slop commentary channels cover topics they know will get views regardless of whether or not they have any personal interest in whatever they're discussing, which is true, but frankly I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that, as long as they don't get sloppy and let their disinterest get in the way of accurately telling the story. One example he brought up is how Pyrocynical talked about the whole Kendrick Lamar versus Drake beef, a monumental and very important moment in hip-hop culture. When I personally saw that video in my recommendation, I kind of scratched my head for a moment, because I just know Pyro doesn't have much to say about the beef, and I'd much rather watch someone like FD Signifier's coverage, because he's actually invested in hip-hop culture and inherently has more to say besides recapping what everyone else is saying, but I digress. Just because Pyro only probably listens to white Swedish rappers, which I hope I'm wrong about, because if I'm right, he's really missing out. But jokes aside, realistically, he most likely isn't completely invested in the beef, but that doesn't mean he's not allowed to cover it. As long as you get your facts straight and cover the story decently, you're all good. But when you have a presentation due and didn't even Google the subject, Pyro only listens to Blady. Why is he covering this? Future and Metro's booming track? Bro can't even talk about rap music without sounding like my grandpa. Dog, you messed up. You gotta refilm this video, bro. You're killing me with Metro's booming track. Still got that yee-yaw haircut. Bro did not do his research. Yeah. Yeah, hair looks like that one time Moses split the sea, bro. I'm done. Why they keep roasting this man's hair? Leave his hair alone, bro. As you can probably tell from the comments flaming him, Pyro probably should have done a little bit more homework, and I get it. Mistakes happen and we mispronounce things sometimes, but come on now, bro. Good Kid in Mad City, Metro's booming track, For All the Scary Dogs, Tupac? Bro, Tupac, bro, come on. At the end of the day, these were all oversights that I do believe warrant criticism, but I don't think Pyro's coverage was completely horrible. It's embarrassing at worst, and it clearly shows how uninvested and out of touch he is with hip-hop culture. In the grand scheme of things, Pyro doesn't do a terrible job with the stories he covers for the most part, although there is the occasional blunder, with one example being his video about the Nux Taco situation, which deserves criticism as he doesn't give the full picture of the story. Overall, I wouldn't go as far as to call Terror's video bad, but I do think it is interesting, and the part of the video I find to be the most interesting is his breakdown of what he calls the slop economy, and I now want to show you a clip of him breaking it down.
Now that we have a good understanding of slop content and everything it entails, let's go through the life cycle of YouTube drama to examine the slop economy at work. All drama starts from the inciting incident. Usually a creator is called out for doing a bad thing. This first wave of backlash leads to people beginning to make jokes and memes spreading the claims, and within a day or two, the first wave of slop videos are released. With that current drama unfolding, now would be an ideal time for accusations to occur. People begin looking into the accused's history, digging for any possible behavior to be called out on. Streamers will go over this as the situation develops, and sloppers might make an extra video or two if the situation is crazy enough. After a little while, a response to the drama is issued, and is either reacted to with an overcorrective defense, or career-tainting humiliation, which is sometimes deserved, sometimes not. Then with the drama coming to a close, the sloppers throw one more video out to end things off, and a few months later, the disguised sloppers release retrospective documentaries of events. Basically just summarizing what happened with little additional storytelling. A lot of the time, someone's coverage of the situation will also be called out, and several much smaller splinter dramas will occur. These usually aren't talked about as much since they aren't worthy of the news cycle, but smaller channels will continue reacting and responding to each other to propagate the slop economy. I find this regurgitation of content to be interesting. Something even more interesting is that a lot of the time, that inciting drama doesn't really matter. In the early stages, a lot of it is just propelled by those making money off of it to keep the income flooding, spreading around old, unrelated stories.
I think this is a pretty interesting breakdown on how drama and situations spread throughout YouTube, and I think he summed it up pretty well, but I do have my gripes with some of the things he said. Tever said, quote, "A lot of the time that inciting drama doesn't even matter," but I'm gonna have to hard disagree with this point. A lot of widespread YouTube drama such as the Mr. Beast allegations, Logan Paul stuff, EDP 445, Illuminati, Mama Max, Chris Tyson to name a few, are very important situations to cover as they reveal a lot of scummy things they've done and need to be called out for, and this is why I want to make the argument that Category A of slop content is an overall net positive for the YouTube ecosystem. Sure, you can have the opinion that a lot of the content sucks, but they serve a purpose. And it's because of channels like Critical, Turkey Tom, Achito, or Chud Logic that stories become widespread and the bad eggs of the YouTube community are held accountable. That's not to say these channels shouldn't be called out whenever they do a crappy job at covering a story, but we shouldn't be ignorant of their importance. In conclusion, the point of this video was to shed light on what I truly believe counts as slop content. I don't think it's fair to go after a whole bunch of YouTubers merely because they're uploading low effort content, but I do think we should call out instances in which YouTubers sloppily make content that ends up spreading misinformation, plagiarizing, and lacks merit and integrity in one way or another.